Hi, this is Gay, and I'll be reading today's edition of the Cape Cod Times for Wednesday, July 29th, 2026. We'll start with the weather. Today you can expect heavy rain off and on, maybe a thunderstorm. Be sure to watch out for flooding. The high temperature, 71. Tonight it'll be mostly cloudy. There'll be showers around. It'll be humid with the low 65. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy and humid again, with a few showers around, the high 73 and the low 64. On Friday, there'll be some sun. There'll be a shower or two. It'll be humid, the high temperature 74 and the low 67. Saturday, it'll be mostly sunny, but it will still be humid, the high temperature 81 and the low 68. And on Sunday, there'll be a morning shower. There'll be some clouds, some sun. It'll still be humid, high temperature 83 and the low 67. The water temperature in Cape Cod Bay today is 68, Nantucket Sound water temperature 73, and at the National Seashore, the water temperature 71. The sun rose this morning at 5:32 and will set tonight at 8:02 p.m. That's 14 hours and 30 minutes of daylight. Now for the winning numbers from the Mass State Lottery. In the numbers game, the midday drawing winning numbers for Tuesday, July 28th are 2, 5, 6, 5. That's 2, 5, 6, 5. Midday winning numbers in the numbers game for Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. The evening winning numbers in the numbers game for Tuesday, July 28th are 2, 2, 8, 6. Again, 2, 2, 8, 6. Evening winning numbers in the numbers game for Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. In the Millionaire for Life drawing for Tuesday, July 28th, the winning numbers are 13, 29, 42, 53, 54, bonus number of 4. Again, 13, 29, 42, 53, 54, bonus number of 4 in the Millionaire Life for drawing for Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. Mass cash drawing for Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. Midday winning numbers are 2, 6, 9, 21, 35. That's 2, 6, 9, 21, 35. Midday winning numbers in the mass cash drawing for Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. The evening winning numbers in the mass cash drawing for Tuesday, July 28th are 4, 7, 9, 14, 26. Again, 4, 7, 9, 14, 26. Evening winning numbers in the mass cash drawing for Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. And in the Mega Millions drawing for Tuesday, July 28th, the winning numbers are 34, 48, 49, 59, 70, bonus number of 12. Again, 34, 48, 49, 59, 70, bonus number of 12, winning numbers in the Mega Millions drawing for Tuesday, July 28th, 2026. Now to the stories on the front page of the Cape Cod Times, Wednesday, July 29th, 2026 edition. Route revealed. Traffic, school buses, noise, top worries as Cape Cod Bridge project designs released by Susan Vaughn, Cape Cod Times, USA Today Network. Born. Colorful lighting on the future Sagamore Bridge arches and a viewing platform on the bridge piers were some of the design features revealed to the public for the first time. State transportation officials and consultants described the aesthetic design features of the bridge, a temporary Cape Cod Canal bike and pedestrian path during construction, and other updates on the Cape Cod Bridges project at a public hearing July 23rd. The 1930s built Sagamore and Bourne bridges are due to be replaced in the project, estimated to cost $4.5 billion. The Sagamore Bridge will be replaced first, state officials said. Many Bourne residents and town officials attended the hearing, and more than a dozen voiced concerns about the future effects of the huge construction project on the community. There is angst among the residents of Bourne that their quality of life will suffer during this mega project, Bourne Select Board Vice Chair Anne Marie Sarunian said, while stressing the town's commitment to working with the State Department of Transportation on the project. At the hearing, project designers from HNTB consulting firm explained the project's different aspects. These are iconic bridges, Louisa Pawanski said, executive director of the State Mega Projects Delivery Office. We take seriously that they belong to Cape Cod. We want to create a sense of arrival. While the designs are efficient and functional, she said, they are also beautiful. Michael Bentum, HTNB project engineer, said the canal pier's design will allow for a viewing platform along the Cape Cod Canal Service Road and a bike path. He also showed a picture of the arched bridge lit up in color at night with LED technology. Proposed bike and pedestrian path during bridge construction. David Anderson, HTNB project manager, showed maps of proposed bicycle and pedestrian paths that will go around the construction areas. A 12-foot path on the mainland side of the canal will run along the south side of the scenic highway, Route 6, from the Herring River Recreation Area and go under Route 3 to Canal Street to reconnect to the current path, according to the plan. On the Cape Cod side, the bike route will divert at the Mid-Cape Connector and follow Sandwich Road to Keithfield and Sagamore and connect back to the main route. Traffic plans during bridge construction. Anderson said the future contractor will be required to keep all lanes open on the existing Sagamore Bridge at all times during construction of the first twin bridge. The Market Basket grocery store will stay on the Cape side of the bridge, Anderson assured residents. A traffic plan has been devised so that no roadwork will be done near Market Basket before the July 4th holiday, Pawanski said, noting awareness of traffic gridlock during the holiday weekend this year. Alex Sue, HNTB Transportation Group Director, said traffic management plans during construction will include year-round work with seasonal limitations and holiday work restrictions and some nighttime closures. GPS technology will be used as part of a communication plan to inform the public on the construction, Sue said. Construction will take some time, he said. The prefabricated bridge components will be made concurrently and construction of the first new twin bridge, she said. The design-build model is being used to speed construction. 12 homes taken by eminent domain. Pawanski reported that 12 of the 13 homes in Sagamore's Round Hill neighborhood near the Sagamore Bridge have been acquired by the state, and one is still undergoing the eminent domain process. State transportation officials will be working with the remaining residents in Round Hill about the future plans, she said, and partial and strip property takings are still to come. Bourne asked for memorandum of understanding. Sarunian, the Bourne Select Board member, gave a list of concerns from town residents as a Select Board's representative on a Cape Cod Bridge Advisory Committee, along with Select Board member Peter Meyer. She highlighted concerns about public safety for emergency access, traffic mobility on local roads, effects on school bus routes, excess noise and vibrations, environmental impacts, and economic impacts on local businesses and tourist attractions, and overall construction safety. Sarunian asked for a formal plan of communication between the town and the state bridge program. We need a meeting of the minds with us and you at the local level, she said. The Select Board feels strongly that engaging a formal memorandum of understanding will help to accomplish just that. Mayors supported Sarunian's comments but added other concerns. We have to be honest about the cost, he said. Some neighbors may face eminent domain. Bourne Scenic Park faces lost revenue. Workers worry about their jobs. Construction will mean traffic delays for school buses, for commuters, for first responders. Some residents were concerned about extra traffic diverting to the Bourne Bridge during the Sagamore Bridge construction. School buses and Cape Cod Bridge traffic. Roger Forze, superintendent of Upper Cape Regional Technical School, asked if there is a plan for getting students to the technical school and the public schools on time during construction. Pawanski said project leaders have had discussions with the schools and will continue to communicate with them. Forge and others suggested some alternate routes to consider during construction to avoid traffic congestion on Sandwich Road and other areas. A specific request Sarunian made was that the contractors make no deliveries during peak commuting time and 2 hours in the morning and afternoon when students are being transported on school buses. She also asked for unobstructed access to homes near the bridge construction. Pionski reported that the procurement process to find the design builder is underway, now with the review of interested bidders' qualifications. A small number will be invited in September to show their proposals, she said. After a final contractor is chosen, construction is expected to proceed in late 2027, with full heavy activity underway by spring 2028, she said. She also said all the funding is in place for the $2.14 billion Sagamore project. The next public forum, hosted by State Representative Dylan Fernandez, is set for August 27th in Mashpee, but no details have been released. In our next story, Sandwich wants feedback on short-term rentals by Rachel Devaney, Cape Cod Times, USA Today Network. Sandwich town officials are asking residents and business owners to weigh in on short-term rentals in a new survey. The town is asking both seasonal and year-round residents and other local stakeholders, like business and property owners, to share their perspectives about short-term rentals with the community survey, which is available on the town's website. The survey, according to a town press release, will be open until September 14th. What is the survey about? The survey is asking participants questions about housing availability, tourism impacts, potential regulations, and economic benefits, according to the release. The feedback, according to the town, will help guide future town policies surrounding short-term housing regulations. Town officials are hopeful that the regulations can balance economic opportunity with neighborhood well-being. We want to hear directly from the people who live and work here, said Leanne Drake, Director of Community Development in Sandwich. Your insights will help us create fair, effective, and sustainable approaches to short-term rentals. A hard copy of the survey is also available at Sandwich Town Hall or by calling 508-833-8001. House fire victim identified in Falmouth with investigation underway, by Marianne Bragg, Cape Cod Times, USA Today Network. The man who died in an East Falmouth house fire on Friday, July 24th, was 71-year-old Edward Craig, according to the Cape and Islands District Attorney's Office. Information about the cause of the fire was not immediately available Monday from the State Fire Marshal's office. Falmouth Fire Chief Jeffrey Lewis declined to comment due to the investigation that is underway, he said. Firefighters fought the blaze at 15 Red Brick Road after a neighbor's call at 6:38 a.m. The fire department found smoke and heavy fire conditions, according to a statement from the state fire marshal. The man was removed from the home, and first responders attempted to, but were unable to revive him, according to the statement. He was declared dead at the scene. Fire officials left the property after 11 a.m. and the road was reopened. The one-family ranch is listed as owned by Edward P. Craig, Catherine A. Craig, and Jean L. Diskin in town assessor records. My adrenaline was running. Juvenile tiger shark caught off Cape Cod by Bailey Allen, USA Today Network, New England. Nate Ruette, 23, and his 28-year-old brother Nelson were fishing on a beach near Falmouth into the early morning hours of Thursday, July 23rd, when one of their lines suddenly tugged hard. A shark had chomped down on the dead eel they were using as bait. At first, the pair thought the gray animal was a sandbar shark, a common sight in the area. But then, after reeling it in a bit, the brothers noticed the creature's markings, leading them to realize they had caught something much rarer, a 5-foot juvenile tiger shark. It wasn't until I got him a little closer that I saw those distinctive horizontal sharps and bars on the side. Ruette, who lives in Brookline, said, I was just wide-eyed and my adrenaline was running. I was like, oh my God, we just pulled in a tiger. He said he ran into the surf and grabbed hold of the shark while Nelson of Shrewsbury kept reeling it in. The brothers marveled at the catch, taking a few photos and a video before removing the hook and releasing the shark. Ruette, an avid fisherman since childhood and social media staffer at On the Water magazine, a regional fishing and boating publication, said he had encountered tiger sharks in Florida, but never in New England. Tigers aren't really considered in the whole shark conversation off Cape Cod, Ruette said. So for one to be caught is both really interesting and also a little alarming because they are considered a threat to humans. Tiger sharks are a warm water species typically found farther south, according to John Chisholm, an adjunct scientist at the New England Aquarium. However, the sharks have been spotted more frequently in Massachusetts waters in recent years as temperatures rise. These small juveniles being caught from shore is really rare, Chisholm said. It's only happening over the last decade, but it's never been common. It's been very sporadic. Chisholm confirmed the brothers' catch was indeed a tiger shark and said the species can grow to around 1,200 pounds and more than 10 feet long. The researcher said tiger sharks are among the species known to bite people and have been involved in fatal attacks. In December 2023, a surfer died after a tiger shark bit off his leg in Paia, Maui, Hawaii, approximately 150 yards from shore, according to the state's Department of Land and Natural Resources. There have been no recorded tiger shark attacks on humans in Massachusetts, Chisholm said. But people have got to be aware that they're out there, he said. Chisholm said swimmers should use common sense when in the water and avoid swimming near seals or large schools of fish, which can be potential food sources for sharks. When it came to handling the tiger shark on Thursday, Ruette said he held out onto its dorsal fin and tail while trying to keep his feet away from the animal. It's tough. You just have to know where to stand so that the shark doesn't turn around and bite you, Ruette said. And you are listening to the Wednesday, July 29th, 2026 edition of the Cape Cod Times. Neighbors Fund offers stability for single mom. Cape Cod Times, USA Today Network. After years of enduring domestic violence, this resilient mother who lives at Cape Cod in the islands region made the difficult decision to protect herself and her teenage son by ending her marriage. Suddenly, she became the sole provider for her household. Working part-time as a medical laboratory, she is actively pursuing a certification to obtain a full-time position and remains determined to create a stable future for her small family. The apartment she has called home for 8 years remains one of the few constants in her son's life, but a costly car repair and an especially difficult winter left her struggling to keep up with expenses. Thanks to the caring neighbors like you, the Cape Cod Neighbors Fund was able to stabilize the household while this devoted and determined mother works toward greater financial independence. Your support helped provide something every family deserves, the opportunity to move forward safely and with hope. What is the Cape Cod Neighbors Fund? Formerly the Cape Cod Times Needy Fund, the Cape Cod Times Neighbors Fund has provided emergency financial assistance to thousands of Cape Codders and Islanders for 90 years. This support is possible because of neighbors helping neighbors. The Neighbors Fund offers short-term emergency assistance to year-round Cape and Islands residents so they can remain safely housed and continue managing daily life. Assistance is provided through a voucher system, paying directly for goods or services such as rent, medical bills, or heating costs. No cash is given to clients. To raise awareness about the summer appeal, the Cape Cod Times will feature a story each Wednesday and Sunday, which will be accompanied by a list of people who donated to the fund through August 30th. How to donate to the Neighbors Fund. Donations, which are tax deductible, may be made online at neighborsfund.org/CCT-summer. Checks can be made payable to the Cape Cod Times Neighbors Fund, P.O. Box 36, Hyannis, Mass. 02601. The QR code can be scanned to make a donation as well. How to get Neighbors Fund assistance. Those needing assistance may contact the Neighbors Fund at 508-778-5661 or 800-422-1446. Questions can be emailed to info@neighborsfund.org. The Neighbors Fund is also on Facebook, facebook.com/neighborsfund, and X @neighborsfund, or visit Cape Cod Times Neighbors Fund. In our next story, what happened to plover chick on the vineyard? By Heather McCarran, Cape Cod Times, USA Today Network. Discovery of an injured piping plover chick inside a protected nesting area on Martha's Vineyard has drawn the attention of federal wildlife officials and highlighted the fragility of species whose recovery is closely tied to Cape Cod and Islands beaches. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is seeking information about an incident involving an 11-day-old bird found injured within a restricting nesting area at Edgartown Great Pond, according to Biodiversity Works, a Martha's Vineyard-based nonprofit that monitors and protects rare species and sensitive habitats. According to the organization, a biologist monitoring nesting birds there discovered the chick on July 17th, struggling to stand from a depression of a human footprint in the sand. A veterinarian later determined the bird had open fractures on both legs, and it was humanely euthanized because its injuries were not survivable. Lyra Brennan, director of Mass Audubon's Coastal Waterbird Program, called the incident very disheartening and said it underscores why wildlife managers rely on fencing, signs, and public outreach around nesting areas. We also need the support of the communities where these birds thrive, she said. Each beachgoer can help keep chicks safe and nests safe as well. Compromise, she acknowledged, isn't always easy, but there's plenty of space and time for everyone to enjoy the beach. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is investigating the incident. Anyone with information is encouraged to use the Wildlife Crime Tip Line at 1-844-FWS-TIPS or the agency's online reporting system at www.fws.gov/wildlifecrime/tips. In a public appeal for information, Biodiversity Works said evidence suggests the incident may have been a malicious act rather than an accident. The organization said the area where the chick was found is fenced and posted to protect nesting piper and plovers. But both the Federal Endangered Species Act and the Massachusetts Endangered Species Act prohibit harassment or injury of protected species. Piping plovers are small migratory shorebirds that nest directly on sandy beaches and coastal dunes where their pale coloring helps them blend in. According to Biodiversity Works, both adult birds and chicks can be difficult to see, which is why wildlife managers establish posted and string fencing, symbolic barriers, and educational signs around nesting and brood rearing areas each year. The Vineyard case is unfolding during a critical stage of the piper plover breeding season when hatchlings are present on beaches across Cape Cod and the islands. Wildlife officials at Mass Audubon say threats to piping plovers persist throughout the breeding season. From the moment eggs are laid in April to the last chick fledgling in September, adults, eggs, and chicks are vulnerable, said Brennan. July and August are important, but so is the rest of the breeding season. Eggs and chicks are well camouflaged and small, she explained, and they faced endless threats during their time in Massachusetts. Each stage of the season is an opportunity to give the birds space and let them raise their families. Predators and dogs, big storms, high tides, and even activities like flying kites over fencing can result in losses, she said. This is why we all work to manage in accordance with the state and federal guidelines. The timing is particularly significant in Massachusetts. According to Mass Wildlife, 1,247 nesting pairs were documented during the 2025 breeding season, compared with fewer than 200 in the mid-1980s. More than half of the Atlantic coast piping plover population now breeds in Massachusetts, according to Brennan, making the state a cornerstone of the species recovery. Cape Cod hosts the largest concentration of breeding piper plovers in Massachusetts, with breeding areas including Sandy Neck Beach Park in Barnstable, the beaches of the Cape Cod National Seashore, and the shores of several Cape towns. The importance of Massachusetts and Cape Cod cannot be overstated, Brennan said. Cape Cod and the islands are essential to this story because of all the available habitat and diversity of habitat for the birds to utilize. The National Park Service notes on its website that piping plovers were common along the Atlantic coast during much of the 19th century, but nearly disappeared due to excessive hunting for the millinery trade. Following passage of the Migratory Bird Treaty Act in 1918, plovers rebounded to a 20th century peak during the 1940s before declining again because of development, habitat loss, human disturbance, predators, storm overwash, and sea level rise. The birds were listed as federally threatened in 1986 and remain protected under both federal and state laws. Human disturbance is one of the threats we can actively work together to address and prevent, and also find compromises that ensure people enjoy the beach fully while also protecting biodiversity, Brennan said. Brennan noted that the species remains remarkably rare despite decades of conservation gains. Piping plovers might be the rarest species many people ever see, she said. The total population is believed to be 8,000 to 10,000 pairs, far fewer than the number of polar bears on the planet. It's amazing to have them on our beaches. And USA Today's Bars of the Year, Cape Cod Beach Bar named one of the best in the U.S. by Gwen Frisk, Cape Cod Times, USA Today Network. Shipwrecked, a beachside bar in the Falmouth Heights area of Cape Cod, Massachusetts, has made the USA Today list of best bars in the USA. USA Today's list of 2026 bars of the year, released today, feature 38 bars from neighborhood joints to speakeasies. I feel so lucky to have this recognition and to be able to share our story, said Shipwreck's owner Alex Kahn. For me, it's such a magical place. The whole courtyard is crushed seashells. You're socializing, looking at the beach, looking at the ocean, looking at boats going by. 5 miles away, you can see Martha's Vineyard. For me, it's like a time machine looking at the beach where I spent time working as a lifeguard when I was in college. USA Today Network food journalists from across the country pooled their expertise to select the list, which includes the places they know, love, and recommend. As soon as the sun shines over Falmouth Heights Beach, Shipwreck Bar and Restaurants retract its wall-to-floor to ceiling windows and lets the summer in. The inside bar, with 14 seats at the rail and another dozen or so at high-top tables, is often full, but you can get any drink or food item anywhere you are sitting at Shipwrecked. The 100-seat restaurant just about doubles its size when the outside is open, with patio table sets in front and in the courtyard between Shipwrecked and the Heights Hotel. There's also a bar with stools running the length of the restaurant and overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. What to drink and eat at Shipwrecked. Wrecked Juice, $14, a fruit-based rum runner and signature blend of house juices featuring a combination of Kraken-spiced and Rum Haven organic coconut water rum, and the Shipwreck's Margarita, also $14, with Pueblo Viejo Blanco tequila and fresh lime are best sellers among Shipwreck's 8 specialty cocktails. There are a dozen draft beers, including Shipwreck's Brew, made by Mashpee-based Knockabout Brewery, all kept bubbly by the new tap system Kahn installed when he took over in 2021. Shipwreck's menu covers a lot of bases, but look for items marked with the oval icon used to indicate a shipwreck on nautical charts. The mark on the menu signals dishes and cocktails unique to Shipwrecked. Nothing says summer like their Caribbean quesadilla, $17 appetizer with spicy chicken and homemade salsa, washed down with a wrecked juice. A fried fish sandwich, $18, or a burger, $16 cooked to order, also fit the bill. Entrees range from $21 to $31, from a chicken tender dinner to sea scallops, fried or baked with mashed potato and veggie. A sushi chef makes sushi to order ranging from $12 order of California maki for one to a $160 party boat for as many people as you have with you. There's also pizza, including the Finish Line, $17 or $23 with sliced meatball, caramelized onions, and ricotta cheese, covered with mozzarella and a drizzle of hot honey. The Finish Line pays tribute to Shipwreck being located 20 feet from the finish line for the Falmouth Road Race, August 16th this year, that Kahn has run most every year since he was 7. Reasons to spend part of a beach day at Shipwrecked. In summer, Shipwreck smells like sunscreen. You need a shirt and shoes to eat, but flip-flops will do. When Kahn bought the neighborhood bar 5 years ago from the British Beer Company, he was, Kahn says, lucky to have the staff and many customers come with it. The staff is friendly, whether you are a first-time visitor or a regular from the neighborhood who summons one of Shipwreck's 2 electric golf carts for a free ride to dinner and back home. Check out shipwreckedfalmouth.com to view the Heights Beach Cam. One of the first things to change at Shipwrecked was the decor. Construction workers pulled out the British motorcycle sticking through one wall and brightened everything to create an airy beach cafe. Shipwrecked is Kahn's first voyage into the hospitality industry. He was a tech guy who made the leap during the COVID pandemic. He says these first 5 years have taught him a lot. He said people want a familiar local place, maybe because they are working at home more, where kids and grandparents can eat, and where there are things to do. Good bartenders are especially important, Kahn said, for making people feel comfortable and introducing them to each other based on common interests. Shipwrecked hosts several community events each year, including a recent sip and shop afternoon with local merchants and a party at which Doug the Quahog was making his annual prediction of sunny summer days. Kahn says of Shipwrecks, it's the perfect trifecta: great staff, great food, and drinks, great view. Details: Shipwrecked Falmouth, 263 Grand Avenue, Falmouth. Phone number 508-540-9600, and it's at shipwreckedfalmouth.com. And Palisades Park and Tallahassee Lassie singer dies at 89. Freddie Cannon, the Palisades Park singer and rock and roller, who was famous from the late 1950s through the mid-1960s, died on July 17th after a battle with cancer. He was 89. Cannon's longtime friend, Tom Cuddy, confirmed the news with Deadline, noting his adult children were by his side in the days before his death in a hospice care facility in Oxnard, California. Born Frederick Anthony Picariello Jr. in Lynn, Massachusetts, Cannon was nicknamed Boom Boom, given his stage name and the explosiveness of his music. He released hits including Tallahassee Lassie, Way Down Yonder in New Orleans, and the upbeat Palisades Park, the latter a tribute to the now-defunct 38-acre amusement park in New Jersey that was famous for its saltwater pool, roller coaster, and live shows. The song, which incorporated amusement park sound effects, was released in 1962 and rose to the top of the charts. The amusement park closed in 1971, but the song remained a classic. It was Cannon's biggest hit, and it was subsequently covered by other bands, including the Beach Boys and the Ramones. Well, we've reached the halfway point in our reading of the Wednesday, July 29th, 2026 edition of the Cape Cod Times, and it's time for the obituaries. First obituary, Veronica Publicover. Veronica A. Herman Publicover of Sudbury and West Yarmouth passed away peacefully on July 22, 2026, at age 98, with her family by her side, having lived a fulfilling life. Veronica was born on May 19, 1928, to Lithuanian immigrants and was the youngest of 7 children. She met the love of her life, Francis Publicover, while working at Whitehead Metal. They married on November 11, 1950, and after their wedding headed for Key West, Florida, where Francis was assigned to a submarine at the Key West Naval Base. Following her husband's active naval duty, Veronica and Francis settled in Sudbury, where they built their home, lived for almost 69 years, and raised 7 children during their 71 years of marriage. She was also an associate for many years in her husband's company, F.G. Publicover and Associates. Veronica's love for her family was boundless and unconditional. Her arms and heart were always open to everyone she encountered. She moved to Florida a few years ago because of her failing health, but continued to radiate joy and love every day. Her sweet smile would melt one's heart, and her sense of humor and mischievous looks would brighten one's day. Cooking, gardening, reading, and spending summers at the Cape with her family were integral parts of her life. Veronica is survived by many family members who will greatly miss her. Immeasurable thanks are given to the team of healthcare professionals from Community Hospice and Palliative Care who provided amazing care to Veronica during her last few years. Family and friends are invited to gather for a period of visitation on Thursday, July 30th from 10 to 11:30 at D Funeral Home, 27 Bedford Street, Concord, Mass., with a mass of Christian burial following at noon at St. Bernard's Church at Holy Family Parish, 12 Monument Square, Concord, Mass. Interment will be held on Friday, July 31st at 12 o'clock at St. Francis Xavier Cemetery, Pine Street, Centerville. In lieu of flowers, memorial donations may be made to the Foundation of Community Hospice and Palliative Care, 4266 Sunbeam Road, Jacksonville, Florida, 32257, or give online at thefoundationcares.org/give. To share a remembrance or condolence on his tribute page, please visit www.dfuneralhome.com. Janice Traina, Marston's Mills. Janice A. McLeod Traina, formerly of Chatham and Harwich, passed away following a long illness with her children at her side. She was predeceased by her husband, Captain Thomas C. Traina, in 2016. Janice was born in Brockton, Massachusetts, and grew up in Easton and Wareham, where her parents owned the Wareham Boatyard on the Wewantic River. Her childhood along the river fostered an enduring connection to the water. She especially loved catching blue crabs, a pastime she remembered fondly throughout her life. Janice graduated from Oliver Ames High School in Easton. She attended Endicott College and later Bridgewater State College, where she earned a bachelor's degree in elementary education. She met Tom as a teenager while water skiing, and during Tom's service in the United States Army, the couple lived for a time in Germany. They made their home in Chatham and Harwich for more than 30 years, and Janice owned and operated Emack and Bolia's Ice Cream in downtown Chatham, a familiar destination for Cape residents and visitors. Janice is survived by family and friends who will miss her. A talented artist, Janice had a distinctive ability to create beautiful things by hand. Her home was filled with furniture she painted with intricate Cape Cod motifs. She also made stunning handcrafted pieces from seashells collected along the shores of Chatham and Vero Beach, Florida. Janice shared her creativity with her grandchildren through baking and art and craft projects. These handmade creations and family traditions will remain lasting reminders of her talents and care. She will be remembered for her artistic gifts, her generosity, and the many exquisite things she created for her home and family. Burial will be private. A memorial gathering celebrating Janice's life is being planned for November 2026. Francis W. Bud Madigan Jr., Worcester. Francis W. Bud Madigan Jr., 95, passed away peacefully in the comfort of his home, surrounded by his loving family, on Saturday, July 25th. Relatives and friends are invited to gather with Bud's family during a period of calling hours on Thursday, July 30th from 3 to 7 at Miles Funeral Home, 1158 Main Street, Holden. A Mass of Christian burial will be celebrated on Friday, July 31st at 10 a.m. at Immaculate Conception Church, 353 Grove Street in Worcester. All guests are respectfully asked to gather directly at the church. Interment will immediately follow at Notre Dame Cemetery, 162 Webster Street, Worcester. To view Bud's full obituary, please visit www.milesfuneral-home.com. And that concludes the obituaries for today's edition of the Cape Cod Times for Wednesday, July 29th, 2026. And now, back to our stories. Massachusetts Senate passed legislation seeks to crack down on Bitcoin ATM scams by Margie Cullen, USA Today Network, New England. In 2022, a Maynard woman almost lost $10,000 to Bitcoin scammers through a crypto ATM. In 2025, police saved a woman from losing $20,000 in another Bitcoin ATM scam in Lakeville. In these cases, the victims had been contacted by scammers posing as authority figures who invented emergencies and told them to immediately send money through a crypto ATM. But once the money is transferred in one of these machines, the chances of getting it back are near zero. In the past 5 years, these scams have skyrocketed, according to a press release from the office of Senator John Cronin, Democrat of Fitchburg. In the last year alone, Massachusetts residents have lost nearly $7 million to crypto ATM scams, according to AARP. Some seniors have lost their entire life savings. Now, lawmakers are trying to prevent future victims by cracking down on the machines themselves. Early on July 24th, the Mass Senate passed legislation to ban crypto ATM kiosks in Massachusetts as part of its economic development bill. I was proud to pass the amendment that bans crypto ATM kiosks, but more importantly, that saves people in the Commonwealth from future predatory scams, Cronin, who filed the amendment, said in a statement. This amendment is a strong consumer protection measure that recognizes the unique dangers posed by these machines. It recognizes that regulation is not enough when the risk is the machine itself, and it recognizes that the Commonwealth has a responsibility to act before more residents lose their savings, their homes, and their financial security. Bill seeks to ban crypto ATMs. The amendment bans virtual currency kiosks from operating in Massachusetts. Virtual currency kiosks, or crypto ATMs, are physical kiosks that convert cash into cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. While they look like traditional ATMs and are similarly often located in convenience stores, they do not connect to a bank account and instead link directly to a digital wallet to transfer digital assets, according to Cronin's office. The amendment gives the Attorney General the authority to bring a civil action against anyone who operates a crypto ATM in the state. What's next? The crypto ATM ban was not included in the House version of the Economic Development Bill, so the two chambers will have to come to an agreement in conference committees before it can go to Governor Maura Healey's desk. 4 states, including Vermont, have already passed bans on crypto ATMs, as have a few towns in Massachusetts. Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Campbell issued a statement supporting the legislation, saying it will strengthen consumer safeguards and protect residents from harm. Campbell has already worked to crack down on crypto ATMs in the state. In February, her office sued cryptocurrency kiosk operator Bitcoin Depot for facilitating scams, causing them to close all their locations in Massachusetts. In our next story, Taylor Farms complained to D.C. officials. Over 4,000 Psilosporiosis cases confirmed, amount likely higher, experts said, by C.D. Maholi, Bo Erickson, Tom Polansek, and Sarah Moreland, Reuters. U.S. produce supplier Taylor Farms complained to White House and Food and Drug Administration officials about the government's inspection process earlier in July, a source familiar with the meeting said on July 27th, as Michigan reported a spike in cases of a parasitic disease tied to the company's lettuce from Mexico. Consumers have been on edge for weeks about whether it is safe to eat lettuce served at restaurants and elsewhere due to uncertainty over what products may be making people sick with psilosporiosis, an intestinal disease that can cause explosive diarrhea. Questions persist, and many people have avoided fresh produce to sidestep potential infections. An FDA investigation linked to the outbreak to iceberg lettuce served at Taco Bell restaurants sourced from the privately held Taylor Farms operations in central Mexico. However, health officials are searching for other potential sources. Some large retailers and restaurants were shunning produce from other growers in central Mexico out of fear about broader contamination of the region's farms, former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb said. U.S. Representative Robert Garcia of California, the top Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, said in a letter that he launched an inquiry into Taylor Farms' role in the outbreak and whether the company attempted to influence the FDA's response. Taylor Farms donated millions to President Trump, met privately with the White House the night the FDA identified their lettuce as the source of this outbreak, and then reportedly tried to distance themselves from this outbreak, Garcia said. Taylor Farms did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Taylor Farms has said it immediately removed all potentially affected products from the marketplace when questions arose about the source of the outbreak, and also voluntarily suspended production of all products at its facility in central Mexico. The FDA said Taylor Farms agreed to remove affected produce following extensive discussions, but the company did not meet an established 24-hour time frame for determining whether it would take voluntary action after the agency presented it with evidence, according to a source familiar with the situation. Another person familiar with the matter said Taylor Farms requested a meeting and spoke with officials from the White House and the FDA. The source described the meeting as Taylor Farms complaining about the government's inspection process. Taylor Farms did not immediately respond to requests for comment on the points raised by the two sources. The White House is closely monitoring the investigation into the outbreak, spokesman Kush Desai said. Any notion that the White House or Trump administration would ever compromise on the health and safety of the American people is absolutely false, he said. The FDA is conducting a thorough and evidence-based outbreak investigation and has never walked back anything regarding the overwhelming epidemiological evidence pointing to a shipment of shredded lettuce from Taylor Farms to Mexico. The U.S. outbreak has resulted in 4,173 laboratory-confirmed cases, with health authorities aware of more than 7,400 additional suspected cases, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Michigan reported 9,253 cases on July 27th, an increase of 1,077 cases since its last update on July 24th. County health officials told Reuters they thought other identified items were making people sick besides Taylor Farms lettuce from Mexico. Certainly, it doesn't tell the whole story with this one recall, said Avani Sheth, chief medical health officer in Wayne County, Michigan, which includes Detroit. Removing products from central Mexico supply chain could mitigate ongoing risks to consumers, said Gottlieb, the FDA's former chief. Speaking on CNBC on July 27th, he said multiple outbreak clusters, including in the Great Lakes region, New York, and North Carolina, appeared to be potentially linked to parsley and cilantro from central Mexico, though investigators have not determined the exact source. I think everyone believes that region is suspect, Gottlieb said, a lot of that products being taken out of supply chains. Gottlieb did not identify companies removing products, and Reuters was not immediately able to confirm which retailers may have stopped sourcing Mexican produce. Gottlieb said the true scope of infection was likely 10 to 20 times greater than the reported case number. Weather conditions raised the risk of widespread contamination, he said, adding that raw sewage could have reached growing areas through flooding, a sewage canal breach, irrigation water, or overflowing portable toilets used by farm workers. There was some event that happened in central Mexico, we don't know what yet, that led to a lot of fields probably getting contaminated, Gottlieb said. In Mexico, analysts said it was important to wait for the results of official investigations. Mario Puente, the head of health and safety at Mexico's CNA Agricultural Chamber, said the trade association was working closely with authorities to investigate the outbreak and improve preventative practices. Mexican authorities recently said that irrigation at Taylor Farms came from certified company-owned wells. They did not identify health issues with workers, and water samples as well as lettuce samples tested negative. Juan Carlos Anaya, director of Consultancy GCMA, said he found it surprising that lettuce samples had not yet tested positive for cyclospora and that just a few cases of illness were confirmed in Mexico. That situation isn't what it is in the United States, and we eat lettuce too, he said. Supreme Court asked to review voting restrictions by Maureen Grope, USA Today, Washington. The Trump administration on July 27th asked the Supreme Court to let President Donald Trump tighten rules nationwide for mail-in ballots before the fall's midterm elections as he seeks to exert more federal control over voting. Trump filed the emergency appeal after lower courts blocked the administration from creating a federal list of eligible voters and limiting delivery of mail ballots only to people on the list in nearly half the states. In June, a federal judge in Boston said key parts of an executive order Trump signed in March were unconstitutional, ruling that those components can't be enforced this year in the 23 states that are challenging the order. In July, an appeals court rejected the administration's argument that the state's lawsuit was premature because the executive order has not been fully implemented. The Boston-based U.S. First Circuit Court of Appeals said the changes are already straining states and would sow confusion and threaten disenfranchisement of many eligible voters if allowed to go into effect for the November elections. But the Justice Department told the Supreme Court that pausing Trump's executive order is especially indefensible because the agencies are still deliberating over how, if at all, to implement the order. The lower court preemptively decided that whatever the agencies may choose to do will necessarily be unlawful, the government's lawyers wrote. The Supreme Court asked the states challenging the order to respond to the administration's appeal by August 3rd. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat from New York, said Trump's executive order is nothing other than voter suppression by any other name. He said the court must reject this latest brazen attempt power grab. The fight over rules for absentee ballots is a key battleground in the 2026 midterms that will determine which party controls Congress. Democrats can take control by flipping a handful of seats in the House and Senate. Voting by mail has decreased since its peak during the COVID-19 pandemic, but nearly 30% of voters still cast a ballot that way in the 2024 elections. Democrats are more likely than Republicans to vote by mail. Trump, who has voted by mail himself, contends absentee ballots are often fraudulent. He directed the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to compile lists of confirmed U.S. citizens eligible to vote for states to consult. The U.S. Postal Service was ordered to only deliver ballots to voters on each state's approved mail-in ballot list. The Justice Department must prioritize investigating and prosecuting state and local election officials who give federal ballots to anyone deemed ineligible to vote. The appeals court said Trump's executive order directs unprecedented levels of involvement by federal officials in how states administer elections. Under the Constitution, states are assigned the role of administering federal elections, but Trump has called for greater federal control since losing his 2020 re-election bid. He's continued to push the false claim that he lost that election because of widespread voter fraud. Kohlberger challenges murder conviction by Tao Nugent, USA Today. Brian Kohlberger, the man convicted of the 2022 murders of 4 Idaho college students, has filed a petition seeking to challenge his guilty plea, and conviction court records show. Kohlberger, 31, filed a petition for post-conviction relief July 27th in the Ada County District Court in Ohio. Such motions allowed defendants to challenge convictions on grounds including ineffective assistance of counsel and other alleged legal or constitutional errors. Court records indicate that Kohlberger is representing himself. In 2025, Kohlberger pleaded guilty to the murders of University of Idaho students Madigan Mogan, 21, Kaylee Gunkal, 21, Xana Kernodle, 20, and Ethan Chapin, 20, at an off-campus home in Moscow, Idaho in November 2022. He was later sentenced to 4 life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus a 10-year sentence for burglary. He first disclosed the petition in an interview with the New York Times in which he claimed he was innocent and he had been misled into confessing to the high-profile killings. He declined to discuss evidence supporting his claim of innocence or to elaborate on his concerns about the plea process, according to the Times. Circumnavigated by a broken plea, the trial never provided the public the clarity conducive to closure, and justice shall remain abjectly miscarried unless that plea is withdrawn. My actual innocence is my truth, he said in a statement to the newspaper on July 26th. Prosecutors said Kohberger broke into the victim's rental home and stabbed the 4 students to death. The murders rocked the town of Moscow, setting the community on edge as authorities searched for weeks for a suspect before arresting Kohberger on December 30th, 2022 in Pennsylvania. Kohberger was linked to the crimes using DNA evidence found on a knife sheath near one of the victims' bodies, along with the cell phone data and surveillance footage of his car's movements, according to prosecutors. Police records reviewed by USA Today in 2025 detailed a history of complaints about Kohberger's behavior at Washington State University, where he was a doctoral student in criminal justice, including allegations that he intimidated classmates and made female students feel unsafe. He struck a plea deal in July 2025 that divided the victims' families as it allowed him to avoid the death penalty in a highly publicized trial. The deal was announced just weeks before his murder trial was set to begin in August 2025. Though Kohberger admitted responsibility for the killings, he never stated a motive. In his statement to the Times, he called investigators' accounts of the killings a myopic narrative and a work of fiction, arguing that its faulty premises were never challenged at trial. In response to Kohberger's filing, Idaho Attorney General Raul Labrador said his office stands ready to do whatever is necessary to ensure justice is fully carried out. The story didn't have much else in it other than a guilty man claiming he is innocent once again, the Gonkov's family said in a July 27th statement. In world news, Oman presents Iran with Gulf-backed plan for voluntary Hormuz fees by Timur Azari and Parisa Hafizi, Reuters, Dubai. Oman has presented Iran with a plan backed by Gulf states to manage the Strait of Hormuz, including collecting voluntary fees for using it, a Gulf source and Western diplomat told Reuters on July 28th. The Omani proposals are intended to serve as a basis to end the disruption to trade through the strait caused by the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. But a U.S. official on July 28th again rejected the idea of tolls or fees for ships transiting the strait, reiterating that it is an international waterway that should be free of Iranian control or restrictions. The official told Reuters that the deal under discussion would not include any tolls or fees. President Donald Trump, who abruptly called off a 2-week U.S. bombing campaign over the weekend in his latest strategic U-turn, said there were good talks underway with Iran but threatened to restart strikes unless negotiations deliver. Iran has denied seeking to resume talks with the United States. Iran has said it would hold fire as long as Washington does, but U.S. Central Command said on July 28 that Iran had launched multiple ballistic missiles in an attempted surprise attack on U.S. forces based in the Middle East, and that the missiles were successfully intercepted. Saudi Arabia said on July 28 that its air defenses intercepted and destroyed several drones targeting oil facilities. The attacks were launched from Iraqi territory by Iran-backed terrorist militias, Saudi Defense Ministry spokesman Turki al-Maliki said. Drone attacks were reported in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and northern Iran on July 27th, and Jordan reported another drone being downed on July 28th. Washington launched fresh strikes earlier this month to break Iran's grip on the strait. Iran effectively shut the strait to ships other than its own after the United States and Israel attacked on February 28th. A deal in June between the United States and Iran partially reopened it, with future talks planned to resolve larger issues, including Iran's nuclear program. But the agreement collapsed in early July after Iran fired on ships using a channel it does not approve. Iran has said it wants to manage the strait alongside Oman, which controls the opposite shore, and charge service fees to ships that use it. Washington wants to return to status quo prior to the war, when ships were able to pass freely with no payments, and saying charging mandatory fees would be illegal. Iran's deputy foreign minister, Kazan Garibabadi, said Tehran had proposed to Oman that Iran manage one-way shipping through its side of the strait and Muscat manage part but not all of the opposite direction. Under the Omani proposal, Iran would not exercise sole control and fees would be voluntary, the Gulf source and Western diplomat briefed on the matter told Reuters. The system would be analogous to one in place on Asia's Strait of Malacca, where Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore asked ships to pay voluntary contributions to fund navigation, environmental protection, and search and rescue operations. The Western diplomat compared it to a voluntary carbon tax for flights, where anyone buying a plane ticket can choose to tick a box if they want to pay to offset their emissions. Gulf Cooperation Council foreign ministers met via video call on July 28th to discuss the latest developments in the conflict, including ways to intensify cooperation on issues related to freedom and safety of vessels through the waterway, a statement from the Qatari Foreign Ministry said. Iran's Joint Military Command again rejected a plan put forward by Trump for damages to vessels to be paid from frozen Iranian assets, state media reported. It said that any country or company that accepted such payments would be denied passage through the Strait of Hormuz by Iran's armed forces. Adding to the challenges for shipping in the region, the Iran-aligned Houthis in Yemen opened a new front against the United States and its allies on July 20th when they declared a blockade of Saudi ports on the Red Sea. Late on July 28th, the Houthis said they had fired ballistic missiles at a Saudi oil tanker, which they said was forced to turn back. Trump called off more airstrikes after receiving advice from military commanders that the strategy had run its course. The 13 nights of renewed U.S. bombing killed scores in Iran and destroyed bridges and tunnels across the south, as well as military targets. Iran responded with attacks on U.S. bases in neighboring countries that killed 4 service members, as well as strikes on civil infrastructure in Gulf states that it said were in response to U.S. strikes on civilian targets. In an interview with Fox News on July 28th, ahead of a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington, Trump said the United States was in a strong position right now. He reiterated he was prepared to strike more Iranian targets, but said he would prefer to avoid doing so. Trump also repeated a threat to potentially target Iran's Pickaxe Mountain, a fortified facility buried deep underground near one of Tehran's main nuclear sites, saying, "If we don't make a deal, we'll take it out very easily." Iran said it has not sought any new negotiations with the United States, which it accuses of violating the agreement reached last month on a framework for talks to end the war. Trump met Netanyahu amid strained relations between the two leaders. Israel was involved in the initial bombing campaign but has not been part of subsequent peace talks. The end of the U.S. bombing campaign over the weekend sent oil prices tumbling by around 8% on July 27th, and the fall continued on July 28th. And today in history, today is July 29th. In 1588, English naval forces under the command of Lord Charles Howard and Sir Francis Drake defeated the supposedly invincible Spanish Armada off the coast of Gravelines, France. The defeat stalled King Philip II of Spain's plan for subjugating England. In 1836, after 30 years of construction, the Arc de Triomphe was officially inaugurated in Paris. It stands at the western end of the Champs-Élysées at the center of the Place de Charles de Gaulle. In 1858, the United States and Japan signed the Treaty of Amity and Commerce, also known as the Harris Treaty, which opened several Japanese ports for trade and allowed for extraterritoriality to foreign residents, excluding them from Japanese laws. It was an unequal agreement that favored U.S. interests over those of Japan. In 1890, Dutch painter Vincent van Gogh succumbed to his self-inflicted gunshot wound and died at age 37 in Auvers-sur-Oise, France. In 1909, General Motors Corp. Purchased luxury automaker Cadillac Automobile Company for $4.5 million. Cadillac, named after the founder of Detroit, Antoine Lomé de la Mothe Cadillac, was founded in August 1902 from the ruins of Henry Ford's second failed automobile company. In 1921, Adolf Hitler assumed leadership of the National Socialist German Workers' Nazi Party. Frustrated by the events of World War I and Germany's defeat, Hitler originally joined the party in 1919. He soon rose through the ranks with his nationalist rhetoric. In 1954, J.R.R. Tolkien published the first volume of his epic fantasy The Lord of the Rings trilogy, The Fellowship of the Ring. And in 1958, U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed legislation to create the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA. The space agency was created in response to the Soviet Union's advances in space exploration, heightened by the October 4th, 1957 launch of Sputnik 1. And that concludes the reading of today's edition of the Cape Cod Times for Wednesday, July 29th, 2026. We'd like to thank you for listening and have a great day.